Hello. Just getting set up here. Okay. Just waiting for everyone to turn up. While we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. If you're new, I'm a parenting coach. I'm not a psychic. Some people think I'm a psychic. I don't have a clue what's going to happen in the future. Wouldn't have a clue. Okay, so where are you from? I'm on YouTube and Facebook. Whenever I do these lives, I'm on YouTube the whole time, and I hop from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. I'm gonna set a timer because I always go too long. Okay, so where are you from? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. Where are you? What time is it? 7:30. It's very late for me to be doing this. I just haven't. Nebraska. Hello, Tiffany. Mel from Logan, Brisbane. Oh, Logan. Okay. Australia. That's where my kids were raised, in Brisbane. There for about 20 years. Northern suburbs. You might not know where it is, actually, if you were in Logan. We lived in Arana Hills, which is near Ferny Grove. So Perth, Australia. Hi, Micah. Never made it over to Perth. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I always think that's where my dad was. I think he was near Saskatoon, but I always think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was Moose Jaw. Yeah, I haven't done a live for a long time, maybe a week or more even. I just haven't had time. Fort St. John. Hi, Megan. Yeah, I just haven't had time lately to do lives. I'm busy. So, and we're doing the podcast. We do 2 podcasts a week. And also we can a lot of them. Like we'll film a couple of them. And then Almost City Way. Hate driving close to the city. Where are you from? Where was that, Melissa? Logan, Brisbane, Australia. Oh, okay. I'm a city girl. I live right downtown. And I actually was when I was looking for a condo to get, I'm like a half a block from a really quiet street, a beautiful street downtown. And I didn't want to live on it. I like the main drag, all the traffic. That's my zen. It relaxes me. Isn't that weird? We're all so different, aren't we? Iowa. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, the podcast. Yeah. So anyway, we do film a couple of podcasts at a time, and we can, I would say almost half of them. We just go, yeah, that was boring. So we yabber on, or we get the giggles, and, so we just, we get rid of them. We're doing our best to put out our best work out there. So when you see we do 2 a week, but we've probably filmed 4. And there's a lot of setup to do that. So that's why I can't do lives, and I'm coaching all the time. So yeah, it's just the lives. I just don't have time for. The podcast takes priority over the lives. Anyway, so let's get going with your questions. I'll introduce myself. My name's, thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate your support. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, my name is Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother. That hat proves that. And you can check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses, coaching. There's a huge wait list for that. Geez, I hiked my prices up, hoping the list would go down. It's not happening. So yeah, I don't know when I'll get to you on the wait list for coaching, to be honest. Maybe I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, coaching and then the podcast. So that's all on BratBusters.com. Doing my best here. Things have just gotten crazy. Okay, so I'm just waiting for your questions. I'll do my best to answer them, and I throw a whole bunch of other stuff in too, because most questions revolve around discipline. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you'll know that I really teach connection. Discipline is a tiny part of what I teach. I teach how to connect with your kids, how to bond with them, how to enjoy them. That's really what I'm all about. One of my clients said something really funny, and I always get permission if I tell a client story. And they said something really funny. I said it once on here, and then my daughter and I discussed it. She said it really funny. If you might know who you are if you're listening. So, and I never say hello to clients on a live because I don't want to identify that they're a client. Anyway, they said something really funny. Then I thought, well, People might not realize she was joking, so I can't say it, but I giggle every time I see it. I put it on my list of funny things that clients have said. It was a good one. Okay. Any suggestions getting your 2-year-old to help clean up? No, I wouldn't get 2-year-olds to do chores quite yet. Just start cleaning up and then hopefully they'll join in, and yeah, don't worry about it. Or as soon as we do, you can use that incentive program that as soon as we do this, we can go that. As soon as we get all your toys away, we can do that. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. You're kind of rushing it. I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Whoops. Number 1, child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Also, so there are not many toys to put away. Okay. Number 3, connect with toddlers in their world, not your world. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill. They look at you differently when you're good at connecting in their world. Number 4, discipline toddlers in their world. It's kind of similar. You discipline them using consistent corrective actions. They're not about words. They don't want these mini therapy sessions. Time out, toss it out. It's garbage. I hate time out. And number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure-outable. Toddlers are brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. They're kind of nuts. I always say they're crazy, but it's just that they haven't developed sanity yet. Okay. Love your post. Comment on twins' behavior. Sharing it too. Comment on twins' behavior. Sharing it too. Oh, sharing. You can't really teach sharing to a 2-year-old. They don't get it because they don't have empathy yet. So what you can teach them is not to grab stuff off the other one. So it's not so much that you're teaching them how to share nicely. You're just teaching them how not to grab. So, but it takes time. Toddlers are a slow burn. They don't learn things very quickly. And it takes repetition, repetition, repetition. Be as consistent as you can, but pick your battles. Just deal with one behavior at a time with toddlers, or else you'll crash and burn. Okay. Yeah, I'm almost at 2 million followers now across my platforms. So I just want to say I really appreciate your support. No one's more surprised than I am, believe me. I've been doing this for about 17, 20 years almost. And yeah, I just blew up a couple of years ago. I mean, I didn't explode. I blew up online a couple of years ago. So yeah, I really appreciate your support. You know, it's funny because I listen to a lot of people who are in business and they really believe in something and everyone else is telling them no, because I was up against that pleaser parent style for many years in my business. A lot of people didn't want to hear from me unless they were in crisis. I specialized in crisis work, especially with teenagers. When they're in crisis, of course, they're going to come to me. But before that, they weren't listening. They wanted that, you know, the pleaser parent style, discuss all their feelings and big emotions. There's a time and a place for that. It was just so overdone. You're raising self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. Anyway, it's a total disaster. Now people are coming around. They realize that didn't work. The schools are a very good indication of that. Yeah, it's a disaster. Kids are so ill-behaved. That's why you yell, because they don't respect you, right? Anyway, but yeah, things are turning around. People are starting to listen to me now. I hung in there. I believe in what I teach. There's no way I'd be doing this if I didn't believe in it. So I know how to get respect with kids. I know how to make them like themselves. I know how to make them want to please me. And when they're teenagers, they just don't want to disappoint themselves and you. Okay, this is Robert Charles. My wife was crying this morning while trying to get our 3-year-old, very stubborn daughter to take off PJs and get dressed. Suggestions to get her to comply. Not really, because it just says that she doesn't respect you. So you got to work on that. Check out the behavior board. And you could say something like this: get dressed within 5 minutes of being asked to do so with your help. And that could be the rule, and there's a consequence if she doesn't. So what you're asking me is, how do I get our kid to respect us? That's a big ask. Check out the free behavior board. It's on my website, and you can put that on there. Get dressed within 5 minutes of being asked to do so. And if you have to help her, that's fine too. And there's a consequence if she doesn't. So it just means she doesn't respect you. That's all. Okay, any tips for 10-year-old boys testing boundaries? They don't tend to test boundaries that they respect. They know there's no point. So, I always say you got to work on your leadership skills. If they're testing you, it's a sign that you're weak, like they don't trust you. So yeah, work on your skills, your leadership skills. I don't fix kids here. I fix and teach parents. So once you're a leader and it's cemented, they don't test you. Why would they? There's no point. Let's say you had a coach and you were playing, I don't know any sports, but I do know baseball and sort of understand it. So let's say You decided one day, let's say you had a really weak coach that you didn't respect. You might decide to run from first to third and skip second. But if you respected that coach, you wouldn't. You see what I mean? Like, why would you test something that you know isn't going to happen, that you know is impossible? Like, if my kids had tested me and tried to do, I would have gone, what? What's your point here? So yeah, work on yourself, work on your leadership skills. I'm going to read out my top. Wait a minute. Okay, no, shoot, that's the wrong one. I got these notes here. I don't know why I have to look this up, but I do. Okay, my top 3 leadership qualities are you're calm during the storms, so when you're disciplining, and you're crazy during the rainbows. When everything's good, be crazy. Be friends with your kids. For sure, you should be friends with your kids. But you're a parent first. That's your first role. And then number 3, so it's calm during the storms, crazy during the rainbows. And number 3, be a great listener. Listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. That's mine, especially with teenagers. This is Tanya. I have a 5-year-old that tantrums every day. He doesn't stop screaming and breaks things. He is out of control. Then when someone comes over, he stops and acts like normal. So he's not out of control. He's in total control. You've got that wrong. He's in control of you. They stop tantruming at about 3.5 years old if they have a leader. Should be petering out by about 3.5, certainly but past the age of 4. Past the age of 4, they only do what works. So he's in total control. Okay. You're the one who's not. You got to work on your leadership skills. You might want to check out my my boot camp course. It's on BratBusters.com. It just means that he's totally in charge of you. That's all it is. So my top 3 leadership qualities: stay calm during the storms. If you show anger or disappointment, you're not a leader. Okay, you stay calm. When you're disciplining, you stay completely calm. But you got to get a system in place. You got that. Try the behavior board, or you can buy the course if you want. By the way, I just realized something. I haven't been able to get to the wait list for coaching. And I always say I take past clients first, and they can always come back. And about 40 to 50% of my clients come back again and again. So that's one of the reasons I'm so busy. Also, and they just like someone to check in with, maybe just once a month after a while or something. Anyway, but then I also, another top priority with coaching is crisis work. Now, if you're just on that intake form and you're in crisis, email me separately, because I haven't even had a chance to look at that intake form. So I just realized that. And clients know to email me separately. Existing clients already know that. Anyway, I just thought of that. Darn it. Anyway, I'm doing my best here. I'm just super busy. Okay. Okay, Dennis, this is on YouTube. I've got a super sensitive 8-year-old boy. It feels like I'm walking on eggshells with him. Do I soften up on him or stay strict and firm? I don't talk like that. You stay consistent, but you also want to be a really good listener. Why is he so sensitive? Usually when you're a really good leader, kids tend to toughen up because they feel like you know what you're doing. They feel proud of themselves. They are good problem solvers. So work on your leadership skills, okay? So it tends to level off their emotions. It calms them down is what I'm saying. So, and I don't talk about being strict and firm. I don't do that. So yeah, maybe you are a little bit too strict and firm. I don't talk like that. And when I'm disciplining, this is how I talk. I say, I'll tell you what, you chose to do that. So there's going to be a consequence. So here's what we're going to do. That's how I talk when I'm disciplining. In other words, it's your choice and here's what's going to happen. So, and how old is he? 8? Okay. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but maybe you are too strict. Maybe you yell. Don't yell. Like leaders never yell. I was never yelled at. I've never yelled. So yeah, leaders don't yell. It's a sign of fear. You're out of control, and it scares them. Okay, so I'm just scrolling ahead. Alexander, you're rocking it. I'm not sure what I'm rocking, but thank you. Oh, the videos. Oh, thanks. By the way, I just want to point out, my daughter and I do the podcast together. She works with me and she does all the marketing. She just takes my information and she's the one who sets it all up and makes it look pretty. So I just talk. And I have no filters. So sometimes she filters stuff out, I'm sure. If I end up looking like a fool during the podcast, which happens a lot, I say stupid things sometimes, I always tell her to leave that in, because the reason is because I never want to set myself up as thinking I'm perfect or doing everything right. You're going to make mistakes. And as a parent, you're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. I hate that trying to be perfect crap. It's just so phony. I hate that garbage. Anyway, and if I do mess up with kids, I make amends. If I mess up, I say, geez, I messed up, didn't I? What do you want from me? Like, I make amends. There's nothing wrong with not being perfect. So I think it's okay to make mistakes with your kids too, but then make amends when you do. That's important. It's very important. If you're not accountable, you're not a leader. God, my kids loved it when I messed up. And they knew they were going to get something. We have triplet 2-year-old boys, and you have time to do this? Wow. I love your advice. We use it every day. Oh, that's so sweet. I've worked with triplets. Lots of my clients have multiples. Okay, this is Dennis again. Okay, he's adopted from foster care. So a bit of trauma in the background. That would be coaching. If a child's been traumatized, I can't give you general advice. Yeah, that would be coaching with me. By the way, that's sort of it's not crisis work, but it's sort of next level stuff. So if you do want coaching, don't just do the intake form. You can do the intake form for coaching if you're interested, by the way. If not, forget it. But send me a separate email, because I just don't always have time to look at that intake form. I'm just really busy right now. I'm overloaded these days. So, but if you want to work with me, if not, check out the free behavior board. That's on my BratBusters.com. Check out the free behavior board. Most of what I teach is more about connecting with kids. One of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me was one of the teenagers I worked with. I used to mentor troubled teens. And one of them said, I didn't like myself until I met you, Lisa. That is what I teach. I teach you how to bring out the best in kids so they like themselves, not so they're obedient soldiers, not so they do what you say all the time, but so that they like themselves. When they feel good, they do good. When they feel bad, if you're shaming them, blaming them, discussing all their bad behavior, they're going to keep doing it because they feel bad. If you feel good, you do good. If you feel bad, you do bad. It's just the way it is. That's how I operate. I make them feel good so they do good. That's all I'm doing here. Does that make sense? I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. If you feel good, you do good. If you feel bad, you do bad. And a lot of parents get caught in this trap, and I don't know where they get this from, but they want to discuss their kids' bad behavior. Why? Why? Why do you want to do that? Let's say you get a speeding ticket, and the police, they're trained to make you feel good when you leave, by the way. Okay, have a nice day, drive carefully, like off you go. If they ran into you in Starbucks the next day, how would you feel if they came over and said, let's discuss that ticket you got? You should know better. Didn't you see the sign? I saw you speed past. How long have you been driving? Do you consider yourself a bad driver? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you would consider that so ignorant? And yet parents do that all the time with their kids. They treat their kids worse than they like to be treated. It's fascinating to me. Fascinating. Why would you discuss the bad behavior? You deal with it. Yeah, you made a mistake. You messed up. You know that. Here's your consequence. Oh, well, let's go to the park. Why would you discuss the bad behavior? You know why? I know why. It's revenge. You want to get it out of your system. Hold back. Be a leader. Be kind. Have a heart. Just deal with bad behavior, then focus on the good kid. If you're making your kids feel bad, they'll do bad. I have a 1-year-old grandson that hits, but he thinks it's funny. I try to redirect, or do I keep doing? Yeah, you just keep redirecting. And what you do, grab the hand that hit and you say, no, he's just still baby. I consider them babies up till about 16 months old. Then they cross over to the toddler stage where you start to use consistent corrective actions more. But when they're still babies, I use redirection. So I say no, and then I go, oh, look at this. And he does it again, but I don't let him continue to hit. you prevent future hits. So they get used to doing it. If you know you've got a hitter, I've worked with lots of kids who are hitters. I grab their hand before I even pick them up. Like I'll pick them up, but I'll grab that hand so they can't hit me. And then I talk to them. Oh, let's go look at that. And I might be hanging onto that hand that hits. See what I mean? The first hit you can't always prevent. I try and prevent the first one too. Once I know I've got a hitter on my hands, I don't like them to continue to do it. And when they laugh, I don't say anything. I just redirect. Going back to this revenge, when you want to talk about bad behavior, whenever I'm working with parents of teenagers, they say, well, when can we discuss all the things they've done that have disappointed us? And I say, well, never. But I said, when your revenge is? It's when they've got their own teenagers and they complain to you. You can just sit back and watch the show. It's a slow burn. You have to wait a long time. Oh, I don't discuss autism on here. That would just be in coaching. That's more in the special needs department. Yeah. But lots of my clients have kids with autism, and sometimes we do have to go roundabout ways and we have to get more creative, and other times we don't. If they're mainstreamed and, no specific real challenges, then yes, just like every other kid. How can I get my 13-year-old to stop refusing to do anything I ask? Well, you're asking a 13-year-old to, okay. So you're asking them to do something and they're not doing it. I would just start with a behavior board and I would put down chores. So I would just say, here's your chore chart, follow chore chart. And if they don't, there's a consequence. Then you say, what do you want from me? What do you want my rule to be? I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. They're my favorite age, by the way. Okay, these are my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. Whoops. Number 1, listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. Number 2, negotiate as much as possible. Hey, I want you to do your chore chart. I want you to do your chores. What do you want from me? And put that on the board and call it just the law or the rules with teenagers. So you negotiate as much as possible. So number 3, don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, just say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. You got to let them make mistakes. They're going to do it just like you did, just like you do. Okay, number 4, don't leverage the good times to discuss the bad times. I talk about this all the time. Do not discuss their bad behavior. There's no point. It's just bullying, shaming, and blaming. There's no productive reason for doing it. None. They're not stupid. They know when they do something bad. You've already disciplined them for it. It's already been a consequence for it. But okay. And then number 5 is you can be a right fighter with a teenager, or you can be happy. You can't be both. Think about it. You can be a right fighter, or you can be happy. When you're arguing with a teenager, they'll dig their heels in, and they know you're right. You're usually right. Not always, by the way, not always, but you're usually right. And they'll dig their heels in, even though they know they're wrong. So where are you going to go? Where are you going with that? If you're arguing with a teenager, I'll tell you what, let's just talk about it later. Don't say when you calm down. That's passive aggressive. It's nasty. So yeah, that's teenagers. My favorite age by far, teenagers. He's barely affected. I'm assuming this is the autism, but screaming while adults are trying to have a conversation. How can we? Well, just put down, if he's 3, put it on the behavior board. No interrupting when we're having a conversation. Make sure you're meeting his needs first. Is he getting enough attention? I'm sure he is, but if he isn't, make sure you meet his needs before you meet their needs and manage their wants. If he's interrupting, that's in the wants department. You got to manage that. Okay. Oh, shoot. I got to go over to Instagram now because I've still got lots of work to do tonight. So I've got to travel over to Instagram now. Anyway, check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can look into our podcast. We do 2 of them a week. And that's where you put your questions that I'll get to. Not all of them, but I'll get to as many as I can. And, well, my daughter does that. So I don't know. We don't overlap in our jobs. I don't know what she does, to be honest. I know she does a lot, but I don't know how she does it. Anyway, I got to go over to Instagram now. If you want to follow me over there, that's great. If not, thanks for joining me. And I'm on YouTube the whole time. That's where all of my lives are saved. And all the podcasts are saved there too. If you want to watch my daughter-in-law during a podcast, that's where you can see us because we film them. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Happy parenting. No. It just takes me a second to push all these buttons. Oh, sugar, they keep changing it. There we go. Okay, I'm on Instagram, turning up. Okay. My daughter's turning 3 on Wednesday and still hurts her 5-year-old sister and just thinks it's a joke. I give her consequences. She doesn't care. Yeah, if the behavior board isn't working, that would be the course potentially. There's a lot more to it, and obviously the behavior board's free. It is a mini course. But if you need more, go to the course, the boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. I don't know what you're doing wrong. Like, obviously, if it's not working, you're missing something. And I don't know what that is. That would be coaching. And then if you just want the course, then that would go into more detail. Because I don't know what to tell you, because I don't know. You said, I give her consequences, but she doesn't care. But what else are you doing? Lots of times people are just dealing with one thing, like the hitting or whatever, or annoying another kid. But there's something else going on too. So you can't, it's not always a standalone. Like, you can't just maybe always deal with one bad behavior. But if you're still yelling a lot, nothing's going to work. Or if you look angry or disappointed a lot, nothing's going to work. Okay, welcome to the live. I was just talking to YouTube because that's where whenever I'm doing a live, I'm on YouTube at the same time. And I bounce from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. And all my lives are saved on YouTube. Anyway, welcome to the... how much do you charge for consultation? I don't do consultations anymore. You just have to sign up for coaching if you're interested. Yeah, I don't do consultations. God, I wouldn't have time for that. I used to. What was really funny, though, is I went on TikTok. Now, for most of my business, I've been running this business now for almost 20 years. I used to do free consultations, like 30 minutes. So, and everyone turned up, everybody. I blew up on TikTok a couple years ago. And I had free signups for consultations on my website. They filled it all up, like within 6 weeks, every single opportunity consultation was filled up. 80% didn't turn up. I got rid of those consultations, but I had to follow through and I had to turn up to all those ones, and all these people weren't turning up. So yeah, I don't do consultations anymore. What a waste of time. I was so frustrated. Anyway. That's what happened. Okay. So anyway, welcome Instagram. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach, mom, and I'm also a grandmother. If you check out my website, BratBusters.com, you can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I work together. We do the podcast together. She's the voice of you. She doesn't have kids yet, but she sees all your comments. I don't see any of that. She sees all the messages and comments. She does all that stuff. So she knows what you're asking. So she's your voice on that podcast, by the way. And so it works out really well. Because oftentimes I'll say something and she'll say, well, that, how are parents supposed to know that? Like, I'll just sort of, because I'm so used to talking to clients and they get so much more information thrown in. But when I'm doing a podcast or on here, I tend to just, I just don't tend to go into greater detail because I don't have time, right? So, but yeah, she reminds me. Okay, sorry, I'm going to scroll ahead to make sure you're still here when I answer your questions. How do I get my 2.5-year-old to stop drinking from a bottle? You just get rid of them, but replace them with something else. So when you're taking something away from a child, especially something it's soothing and they're attached to it, then you want to replace it with something else. I'll tell you what I did with my son, and he did have tantrums. He didn't have a ton of them, but he was good at it when he did. He was 18 months old, and I decided I'm going to take the dummies away from him. And because the only reason I let him have it that long was because we lived in Australia and we were going to travel to Canada, and it's a 24-hour trip. lay over in that. So I thought there's no freaking way I'm going to take him along without a dummy. I thought there's no way. So I let him have the dummy for the whole trip. And then as soon as we got home, I thought, that's it, I'm getting rid of it. So I put them all in a little baggie and I carried him and he carried the dummies. And I said, you're a big boy now, bye-bye. And I opened up the wheelie bin and he threw them in. And we had jet lag, and here I was taking his precious dummies away. He had them in his mouth all the time. It was horrible. Anyway, so I thought, what have I done to myself? What am I doing? I had jet lag, and I just thought it's going to be a nightmare. And but I did buy him a sippy cup. I bought him something new to replace it with, and they were, I'll go into it because I don't know if they're safe nowadays, but they were sippy cups that had a little straw, like a silicone straw, and he liked to chew on that. I kept a close eye on it in case he could actually chew it, but he never did. So anyway, so I bought him something to replace the dummies with. So he drank so much water, he was peeing constantly. So just because he was used to sucking on the dummy, he ended up sucking on the straw, and then he sort of stopped doing that as much. But every time he'd go like this and look for the dummy, he'd look over at me, and I instantly would look away. I thought, I'm not getting eye contact with him. It does that. He never asked for them once. I was shocked because I expected it to be hell. Never asked for a dummy again. Isn't that bizarre? Anyway, so yeah, replace it with something else. He had the sippy cup, and even with no water in it, he'd often just chew on the straw. So it worked out great because we lived in Australia, and you got to get a lot of liquids into the Australian kids because of the heat, right? So it worked out great that he went from the dummies, getting no water out of that thing, and then he ended up drinking tons of water. So boy, did I have to change a lot of nappies, which is a diaper over here. So. Advice on runners and climbers, please. Okay, there's 4 things that kids are born to do, or they're never going to do them. One is climbing, one is running, one is tantrums, and one is aggressiveness. They might hit or whatever. So they're born with that DNA in them. So you've got climbers, please. Runners. Okay, runners, what I do is if you've got a runner and they don't listen to you when you're out in public, I consider that like a really dangerous thing. So I would get a harness and I would put it on them before you go out. And then say, if you run, you're going to get clipped into this leash. And I would do a trial run so that because if you're going to do this, so as soon as they start to run, grab them fast, clip them in, and you have to keep them clipped in for the rest of that outing. So do trial runs. Go somewhere where you don't have to go because they're going to drop and scream. They're going to be mad. They're not going to like that. So you don't want to do that when you have to go grocery shopping or something. So do a few runs where you don't care where you're going. Anyway, that's for the running. The climbing is harder because what can you do? I'll tell you a not cute story. It's kind of scary. One of my clients couldn't find her, I think that was 18 months old, little girl, couldn't find her. It was so bad. She looked for like minutes, like she could not find her 18-month-old in the house. She checked all the doors. She thought someone must have stolen a key, copied it, and then put it back on her keychain and come in, stolen the kid because the mom had gone to the bathroom, came out and couldn't find her. So, and then locked up behind them. She was convinced. She almost called the cops. She went to run into to get her phone, and she heard giggling. Her 18-month-old, she had everything childproofed, but her 18-month-old had pulled out the kitchen drawers just enough to get her little toes on the edge of them, up on the counter, then up on a bread maker, I think it was, then on top of the fridge. She was on the fridge. What if she fell off? Anyway, so she was a climber. So I say put a bell on them. You can get alarms for things. If anything's pulled out, you can get an alarm and watch them like a hawk. It's temporary. They'll get over it. I had another client who had a kid who, I don't know how old, I can't remember, they all get mixed up after a while, but was climbing the walls like this, but they had a house that had like an 18-foot ceiling, and the kid went up to 18 feet climbing the walls, like 1 foot on either side, hand and foot like that, went up to 18 feet, and the parents were trying to, and he got himself back down again. What do you do for that? Put an alarm on him, but watch him like a hawk. He wasn't 2.5 though. He would have been more like 4 when he did that. Whoops, sorry. That's my little timer, a little picture timer. I recommend these things all the time to clients. A visual timer for kids whenever you're doing, I get 15 minutes to do a chore or whatever. Anyway, I do that for myself for a live because I get yabbering and then I forget to move on to the next thing. Oh, I just want to take the time to say thanks so much for your support on here. I really appreciate it. We're almost at 2 million followers now across the platforms. And I came on social media, really just started, I think 2 years ago. So we're just stunned. I mean, I just want to say it's not unappreciated. It's very appreciated because you're taking the time to watch this stuff, and I really appreciate it. I've been putting a lot into this my whole life. I started volunteering with kids when I was 11, and I'm 64 now. So I've been putting a lot of years into all this stuff. And I really believe in what I'm teaching because I've seen the results. I've seen, my goal is always that kids like themselves when they're with me. That was always my goal with kids. And I do think you can be friends with your kids, but you're always the parent first. You go to that. If when needed, you're the parent before you're anything else. But the rest of the time, you can just have fun with your kids. That's my goal with you. I don't want you to raise obedient soldiers. I think that's ridiculous. That they'll rebel in the teen years for sure. I want you to raise kids who are problem solvers. They're strong. They're respectful, and they like themselves. They have high self-esteem. That's what I'm teaching here. Discipline's a tiny part of it. Okay, I don't quite understand the question. Okay. Oh, yes, I do now. Okay. Working mom here. Do you recommend that I always let my 20-month-old know when I'm leaving? I'm guessing you mean, even if it could result in tears and leave the nanny with worse situation, or just disappear. Just disappear. I did that with my granddaughter. I daycare her 1 day a week. Actually, I'm doing it twice this week, so I'm excited about it. Anyway, so she's only 14 months old, but her mom was leaving. And I was just cleaning up. She just had breakfast. Not my daughter-in-law, but my granddaughter. And I cleaned her all up. Then I walked to the front door to say goodbye to mom. How stupid was I? I knew better. I did it anyway. And of course she started to cry because mom was leaving. So she didn't know mom was leaving before that, but then she started to cry. It's okay. They're fine. Then I just took her and read a book. She was fine. But anyway, so yeah, stupid me. Anyway, yeah, just disappear. What do I do? Oh, this is an easy one. Sonia, what do I do if my child eats a minimal amount during dinner and then is hungry again later? Bring out the dinner. Keep it in the fridge, warm it up in the microwave, and say, oh, here you go. Someone said, really? Even when she's 20 months? Yeah, I would. They know you're leaving. They get that. They already know you're leaving. They don't need the goodbye. They're okay. They're with the nanny. They know they're safe. Oops. Well, thanks, Alexandra. I put so much of your advice into practice, and boy, it works. It does, so long as you're consistent, because really I'm just teaching connection. And I always say my goal is that kids like themselves when they're with me. That is my goal. They like themselves when they're with me. A leader, that's what they do. I'm not an authority. I'm not a pleaser parent. Pleaser parents are, oh, what do you want? What do you want? And they end up yelling. It's very good for my business, but I'd rather it didn't go that way. Because that pleaser parent style, it's a disaster. It's going out of style. Finally, thank God. Oh, it's been my nemesis. You know what? I probably wouldn't be still in business if it wasn't for that. What I mean by that is I got to change that, because I know the schools are just suffering as a result of the pleaser parent style. They're just, kids are out of control. Out of control. It's a disaster. Oh, well, someone said, you're talking about some other parenting methods. The only methods I ever discuss are their big picture stuff. I've never looked at anybody else out there. I haven't got a clue. I know what I'm doing. Why on earth would I look at some other parenting coach? So, and I teach through my own experience and nothing else. Anyway, I talk about the old-fashioned authority style, my way or the highway. You listen to me because I'm your parent. It's fear-based parenting, and they will rebel in the teen years. And then the new style, pleaser parent, is you're always trying to please them, and heaven forbid you should say no, and you want to discuss all the big feelings and big emotions, even if they've just hit someone. You do not need to discuss that. Anyway, so that's raising self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. They'll never respect you. It's a disaster. So I'm a leader. I teach leadership. They respect you from the age of about 3. It's sort of cemented, and you can sail right through the teen years. Because they respect you, because you respect them. You give respect to get it. Look at the pool story. You can just type in BratBusters pool story and it'll pop up on Google. And look at that. It teaches how you deal with bad behavior, but that's not my focus. You deal with bad behavior, then you focus on the good kid. Where you put your focus, where you put your energy is what grows. And I always say too, if kids feel good about themselves, they do good. If they feel bad about themselves, they do bad. We're all like that. If we feel good, we do good. If we feel bad, we do bad, right? That's what I teach kids. I want them to feel good about themselves. Even when I'm disciplining, I might even say, well, that was stupid. Here's your consequence. And then say, you want to hear the stupid thing I did the other day? Like, it's okay to do stupid things, but there's got to be accountable for them. I'm here to make them accountable. And then they get proud of it. They'll be self-disciplined like my kids were, because they understood we all make mistakes, but they weren't rude. They were respectful, but they might forget to do a chore or something, and then they were accountable for it. No problem. Okay. Amber Fox, I wish I would have found you sooner. Now I'm trying to undo what I have caused by being a pleaser parent. Yeah, don't look back, just look forward. Therapists focus on the past, coaches focus on the future. So yeah, just move forward. Whenever I was working with kids, they're very pliable, by the way, teenagers too. I never had problems getting respect with kids, no matter what anyone else was doing with them. They are drawn to a leader because a leader brings out the best in them. A leader makes them feel good about themselves. That's why they're so drawn to a leader. They just are. Aren't you drawn to someone who makes you feel great, who brings the best out in you? Aren't even as an adult? Don't you want to please that person that makes you feel great? That's what I do. That's what I teach. Think about it. Are you discussing their bad behavior? Talking about it? What's the point? It's just mean. That's berating and bullying. Deal with it. Yeah, you did something bad. Here's your consequence now. Do you want to go to the park? Forget it. That's the pool story. Look it up. BratBusters pool story. It explains it all. Okay. And by the way, I just remembered this. I think I mentioned this in Facebook when I was just on there. I don't have time to look at my intake form for coaching. It's just, I've gotten so busy lately because about 40% of my clients keep re-signing because they just want to, keep going. And so I haven't had time to take on new clients. Anyway, I always say I take on my existing clients first priority. Second priority is crisis. If you are in crisis and you filled out a coaching form on my website, you want coaching, I won't even have a time to see it right now anyway. Send me a separate email if you're in crisis, because I will take you. I'll figure it out. But crisis is life and death stuff. It's not 2-year-old tantruming and driving you nuts. It's usually teenage stuff. Not always. It could be children who've been through trauma. Okay, my 3-year-old is in a leg cast. How do I get her to stop walking on her broken leg? I feel bad getting upset with her as I know she wants to get back to walking. I can't address that because that's a medical thing. I don't want to address that. Not here. I'd have to figure out exactly what's going on. So that would be coaching, and you don't need me coaching just for that. So yeah, I would have to assess the situation and figure something else out. I never really want to take something away from kids. I try to give them something different to do. Like, I don't just like to say to kids, stop doing that. I like to say, I'll tell you what you can do instead. You can do this. So I never try and deny their anger or their frustration or whatever it is. I try and redirect that. But I do address it when they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, I would have to assess that situation, to be honest. My 3-year-old wants to pick her own outfit. Is it okay if I let her choose if she asks nicely? Of course, if you don't mind her doing that. So long as if she picks something inappropriate and you have to correct it, that she doesn't have a fit. We don't need to give them choices for everything. Parents are giving kids, that's the pleaser parent style. You want to give them a choice for everything. What time they go to bed, what they eat for dinner, what they're going to wear. It's okay, but if it's a problem, it's not okay. So, but yeah, so long as she understands that she can't maybe wear her purple tights to school or something, you know what I'm saying. How to undo pleaser child. I fear my child too is doing things just to please me and always saying sorry even when she didn't do wrong. Am I fear-based parent? I don't know what's going on there. I'm assuming that if she says sorry, she can get away with more. Sorry, and then you go, that's okay, and then she keeps doing it. I'm just wondering why a 2-year-old, that I don't quite know what's going on there. Oh, don't ask me about food. I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian or anything. I have no degrees at all. I'm just a mother, grandmother who teaches parent-child relationships. Kids taught me all this stuff. I started volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11. I just always kind of understood kids. I remember watching them thinking, I know exactly what you're thinking. I remember that. I was 11. What kind of 11-year-old volunteers in a daycare center? That was back in the day when they let me, right? So nowadays, could you imagine just some strange kid asking to volunteer? Anyway, and then I was also babysitting at 11 years old. I could always look at a kid and figure out what they were thinking. I don't have a lot of skills, but that's something that came easy to me. I can also remember what I was thinking at each age. It's almost like I can transport myself back there. It's really weird. I guess I've been studying kids for so long that I can just remember all this stuff. But yeah. And they're just like us. They're just like us. We don't like to be berated for mistakes we made. You don't want someone, let's say you make a mistake and your husband said, remember you were late the other day and you were late and you know better. You shouldn't have done that. Are you going to do that again? That berating and bullying and talking about your bad stuff that you did. Kids don't like that either. And yet parents do that all the time with their kids. They discuss this bad behavior. I call it the mini therapy sessions. Big mistake. Hi there from Australia. So 2-year-old hitting when you're putting them in the car seat. Yeah, just try and prevent the hits. You might want to, you got to physically figure out how to do that. But yeah, if they're hitting you, they're 2 years old, you should be able to ward off the hits. Maybe keep your face away and clip them in. In other words, just follow through with what you've got to get done. Don't discuss the hits. Do you have any videos or advice on toddlers with ASD, autism spectrum disorder? No, I don't. That would be coaching. That's more of a special needs thing. Plus, there's not a blanket advice for that. They're all different. So, and they've been diagnosed at 2. That's really young. Not to say they can't. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But yeah, that is really young. But yeah, no, that would be coaching. And I teach parent-child relationships. I don't specifically deal with diagnoses, if you know what I mean. But I work with a lot of parents who have kids with special needs and challenges. But yeah. Okay. Love to hear my son on the podcast. He doesn't work with us, and he is so freaking busy. So yeah, he doesn't have time. I would love to get him on the podcast one day. Yeah, that would be great. What I'd love to do is have them both my kids on the podcast. Maybe one day. But yeah, he's very busy. He's got a new family. He's got a job he loves, but it's very demanding. And yeah, actually I'm going to be daycaring twice this week. And because he has to go into work on Saturday, which is his day to look after the granddaughter, because the wife works. It's so confusing. But anyway, so yeah, I would love to get him on. Okay. Oh God, you're going to hate me. This is Mamma Mia. You're going to hate me. Stubborn, almost 2-year-old won't say sorry to siblings, just smiles or won't like, why on earth are you trying to get a 2-year-old to say sorry? What's the point? Is there any lesson in that? No. There's no lesson in saying sorry. I see this all the time. Say you're sorry, and then they go and do the exact same thing again. There's no lesson in that. 0. Check out my free behavior board. It's got a little section there on toddlers. It's a mini course. It's free, and it's got a little section on toddlers. And they're consistent corrective actions. Saying sorry means nothing. I knew this kid ended up being the district bully, was kicked out of all the high schools. And I saw it coming. I knew him when he was a baby, and he would hit my kid, so I stopped. I couldn't be friends with her anymore. Anyway, he was a nasty little guy, and she didn't know how to deal with it. She kept saying to him, "Say you're sorry," and he'd go, "Dobby," and then he'd just hit my kid again and again. Yeah, where's the lesson in saying you're sorry? They don't have empathy at 2. Your toddler course, is it? Oh, just look it up. It's I operate in US dollars. I'm in Canada, but all my expenses and all my income are all US. So I operate in US dollars. How do you know the difference between tantrums and behavioral issues? Well, a tantrum is a loss of emotional control, not getting their own way. A tantrum usually is as a result of hearing the word no or being taken away from something they don't want to leave. So it's an emotional outburst. It's not emotions and feelings, though. It's a loss of emotional control at not getting their own way. There's a difference. It's not heart-based. It's more, I'm mad. It's anger-based. You do not need to validate that. You ignore tantrums. You do not need to validate them not liking the word no. You do not need to validate that. Oh, oops, I gotta go. I gotta go over to TikTok. If you want to join me over there, you're welcome to do so. It's BratBusters Parenting. If not, just check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can look into our podcast. We do 2 a week, my daughter and I, because she works with me. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'm on YouTube the whole time, which is where all these lives are saved. Happy parenting. Bye now. You should see all the buttons I have to push here. Just a sec. And going to TikTok, it's the most buttons.
So going into this
well, that wasn't too bad. It was only 5 buttons. I actually counted. It just feels like more. Okay, so. Oh, I signed as Amber. I signed up for your boot camp and just made our first family board. So you would have bought the 3 to 12-year-old one. Excellent. Hope it goes well. We're actually, right now, we're in the process of redoing all the videos. And so they'll just, we're just making it better, basically. It's not even a year old yet, I don't think, that course. And, but it's all, like, you'll see. Just, it's already got videos throughout it. We're just, why are we redoing them? Oh, my daughter told me to. I just do what she tells me. I thought it was fine the way it was, but we're redoing all the videos. I don't know why. I forgot to ask why. No, I just do what I'm told. She does all the planning for the business. She does all the marketing, all the social media, and all the planning. So I just do what I'm told. Bedtime battles. They're at the door screaming. How often do you go in there to put them back? At the door? What door? They should be able to come right out. So check out if you want the course, both courses have the bedtime battles in it. That you can't lock them somewhere. You have to let them come out so you can walk them back. Do it for an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours, as long as it takes for them to pass out. So yeah, the longest I ever heard of someone going, it's kind of a long, funny story. I won't go into it here. I think they went till 5 a.m. It was an older kid, and went till 5 a.m. But never got up again. Was one night of sheer hell. That kid never got up again, and everything else started to get easier. It was like that was the big battle. I said, you win this battle, everything else will get easier. Okay, anyway, welcome to my live. I'm on TikTok now, and I'm on YouTube the whole time, every time I'm doing a live. That's where I save all my lives. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'm Lisa. I'm a parenting coach, mom. I'm also a grandmother. If you check out my website, BratBusters.com, you can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can look into the podcast. My daughter and I work together, and we do the podcast together. And anyway, she does all of my social media marketing and planning, so she just tells me what to do, basically. Bit of a slave driver. Oh, she might be watching. Hi, sweetie. Oh, what about children with autism? Yeah, I only deal with that in coaching. Coaching is special needs stuff or trauma or crisis work. So any special needs would be just coaching. And I've got a big wait list for that right now. So I don't know when I'd get to it anyway. This is interesting, and I'm going to go somewhere where you wouldn't expect. This is Honeybee. What about a toddler who can't say emotion and says, I will kick you? Even if they can say emotion, they're going to kick you anyway. Being able to express themselves emotionally does not stop them from getting mad at not getting their own way. That's a big fallacy out there. We'll discuss all their big feelings and big emotions. That's garbage. They're still going to get mad when you say no. Discussing it makes no difference whatsoever. Zilch. That's the mini therapy sessions. I know they're popular, but they're garbage. Absolute garbage. Okay. Oh, you've got a toddler hitting the dog? Keep that dog safe. You interject constantly, put the dog in a kennel, rehome it if you have to. I hate animal abuse. We always had pets, and I remember my kids knew you never pick up the dog, because what if they dropped her? They could hold her if they were already sitting on a couch or something. I would put her in their laps. And also they weren't allowed to run past the bird cage because it might frighten the bird. So they just learned from a very young age. If I couldn't handle my kids enough to keep my animals safe and happy, I would have rehomed them. I love animals. I would never allow them to be hurt. I'm not an animal activist. I'm not an activist for anything, but yeah, I love animals. You're in the middle of tantrum land with twins. Good luck with that. There's nothing you can do. You have to wait it out. The tantrums will minimize in duration, frequency, and intensity if you learn to ignore them correctly. You just completely ignore a tantrum. I've got lots of videos on that. I don't feel like going into it here, but yeah, like you're filing your nails, just waiting for a bus. You're just waiting for as soon as they're done, you say, oh, you all done? Okay, let's go read a book or something. So yeah, you got twins and they'll trade off. You'll just finish with one and the other one will go, or they're both going to be going, they'll hit each other. It's temporary. They're only going to be two for a very short period of time. And, but yeah, as long as you ignore them, ignore the tantrums. If they're getting physical, you physically restrain them, but still ignore. Don't look at them or talk to them. You just prevent them from hurting themselves, hurting someone else, or damaging property. What if the tantrum is taking over 30 minutes? Well, you mean if it's a short one like that, they can go for an hour or two. Yeah, you still ignore. You can be doing dishes or something, but you let them go. Let them go. It's up to them to learn that tantrums will never work. Any attention is fertilizing a tantrum. So that's what they're after. They're after attention. Sorry, I know there's a lot of questions coming in, but I don't understand them all, so I just have to skip over them. And always put the age down, by the way. I'm a new dad. Is it normal for our toddler having a tantrum when getting put to sleep? They either are going to have tantrums or they're never going to have them. My son had them. My daughter never had them. I've never had one. Well, I'm 64, but I mean, I never had one when I was growing up either. So it's something, it's in their DNA. They're either going to have tantrums or they're never going to have them. It's a temperament. You're born with a certain temperament. Okay. And then once they pass about 3 years old, they can stop and think before they act. And, you can sort of teach them out of them. If they're still having tantrums past the age of 3.5, you got to work on your parenting harder, because they'll stop having them when they realize they're never going to work. They can reason things out more. And, but yeah, some kids will have tantrums, some kids won't. There's 4 things they're born to do or they're never going to do. One is tantrums, one is aggressiveness, one is running, and one is climbing. Some kids will never do any of those. Some kids will do all of them. I was saying this on a live once and someone said, my kids do all 7. There's 4 of them. Yeah. Hitting or aggressiveness, tantrums, running, or climbing. Runners and climbers often go together, but not always. They run away from you and they climb everything. They're physically more adventuresome. They don't have a lot of fear, that they're not cautious at all. I have a 21-month-old. Do timeouts work? I hate timeout. I can't stand it. I think it's mean. Yeah, I hate it. So I would get rid of it. I'm going to read out 3 common discipline methods that I hate. One is timeout. You know, when you tell a child to go over, sit in a corner, and you think about what you did. Could you imagine if your boss said that to you? Think about it. Like, we often treat kids so much worse than we want to be treated as adults. Think about it. Yeah. Your boss says, hey, you were bad. You made a mistake here. Go sit in the corner. Anyway, so I hate timeout. I think it's useless. And then you, not only do you want them to think about what they did, they're not. They're sitting in the corner feeling like crap. And then you go over and then you discuss the bad behavior. I don't do that either. So yeah, I hate timeout. Get rid of it. The second one, it's worse than timeout, is diversion. When they're doing something bad and you divert them with something good. Okay, because you never divert with broccoli. It's always, look at this ice cream. So you're rewarding the bad behavior. And the worst one is the countdown. When they're doing something bad and you say, you better stop that by the time I count to 3. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 7/8, whatever, 3. And then they stop. Where's the consequence for what they just did? They've just learned it's okay to be rotten in the short term, just not in the long term. It's a fear-based parenting method. You're just hoping to God they stop so you never have to do anything. They've learned nothing. They've learned I can do anything rotten for 3 counts. And my parents don't know what the heck they're doing. They pick up on that. It's the worst one. So the worst is countdown. After that's diversion. The last one is timeout. And those are just the 3 really common discipline methods that I see all the time that are just awful. What do you do then? Everything else I teach. When you've got toddlers under the age of 3, you use consistent corrective actions. Because they learn through repetition. That's in my behavior board. If you check it out, it explains it. It's completely free. The behavior board's on BratBusters.com. If they're 3 and over, you use my behavior board. So the free behavior board course has 3 and above, and then it also has a section on toddlers. It's completely free. So you can sign up for that, and it explains how you discipline. But remember, I don't teach discipline as much as I teach connection. Your goal with your kids is that they like themselves when they're with you. That is your goal. Increase their self-esteem. They feel good, they'll do good. They feel bad, they'll do bad. I know how to make kids feel good about themselves, and that's why they treat me so well. If you make someone, even adults, you make them feel good about themselves, they're going to treat you really well. Think about it. Kids are no different. How do you feel about the conscious discipline? I don't know. I only teach what I know. I teach leadership parenting. I don't know anything else that's out there. Nothing. Why would I? I only teach what I know. Kids taught me all this. I teach through all my 50 plus years of experience with kids. So I don't critique other parenting methods. Why would I do that? How many kids do you have? I just have 2. They are 30 and 35, and I have 1 granddaughter. She's 14 months old. And I work 7 days a week, but I have adjusted my schedule around so I can daycare my granddaughter 1 day a week. And I love it. I want her to know me. She's only 14 months old. I love it. I adore her. I love her. I didn't expect this. I love her exactly the same as I love my kids. Yeah. And it's just wonderful. I love being a grandmother. And while she sleeps, I try and get some work in. But yeah, I love it. Oh, thanks, Baby Jane. Was that from that movie, Baby Jane? Do you know what I'm talking about? Look it up if you don't know. It was a classic movie. It was fantastic with Betty Davis. She's gone for years now. Anyway, really good movie. My mom kept calling me Kelly Bundy, so I stopped learning at a young age. I don't know Kelly Bundy. Was that the blonde that was really dumb? I think it was, wasn't it? I haven't really seen much of that show, but I think that's what it was. Well, she was pretty. Maybe that's what your mom was referring to. I think that Christina Applegate was the actress in that, and I think she's got MS now. She's really suffering. I feel horrible for her. What age would you see one of the 4 temperaments you mentioned. So the temperaments are hitting, tantruming, climbing, running. You'll see it once they're up on their feet, or babies, you'll see the tantrums. And a lot of babies will start hitting. And they're usually, the climbers are the ones who are really physical. They'll be crawling and they'll just crawl off anything. They don't tend to they're not cautious at all. They're really physical, right? But they're often the athletes of tomorrow. So it's just hard when they're all feet, no brains kind of thing. Okay. How do I get my estranged 17-year-old who's with her father full-time to actually talk to me? That would be coaching. And even then, there's no guarantees with any of that. But I do have some advice I could potentially, but I'd have to figure it all out. What's your past? What's going on? What are you willing to do? Often I tell parents to do stuff they don't want to do, but they usually do. Yeah. You got to be very humble and very vulnerable, and yet not be pathetic, if that makes sense. Yeah, you don't want to be all, I love you, and they hate that. But you got to be vulnerable and humble. But it's tricky. It's very tricky. I do specialize in teenagers. They're my favorite age. Anyway, if you want to work with me, just check out my website and you can look into coaching. I have a wait list, but maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at it lately. Do you still have a podcast? Yeah, we do twice a week. And we film, I would say we can, like we chuck probably half of them, maybe not quite half, but because we'll film a couple and then we'll say, oh, I didn't like that one. Sometimes we'll toss both of them. So we really work hard to put out the best podcast that we can. We're quite new at it. We've been doing it for about 4 months. I mean, I've been doing my business for like 20 years, but we've only been doing the podcast, my daughter and I, for about 4 months, I think, maybe a bit more. I think we've done about 30 of them or something. I don't know. Anyway, it is going great guns. It's going very well. So we're very happy with that. But yeah, we're still doing it. Just going to look at it here. Yeah, the one that we did one recently. What was it that was really popular? Oh, do your kids only listen when you yell? I think that was a popular one. Because it's so common. Most parents yell. They yell because it works in the moment. Short term, though, because it'll backfire down the road. No one wants to yell, but you yell because it works in the moment, right? I was never yelled at. I never yelled. But yeah, most parents do. It's just I knew what else to do. So I had a lot of experience with kids before I had my own. And I was never yelled at. So yelling is not a go-to for me. It's very hard to yell if you've never been yelled at. It just feels, ugh. Yeah. Yeah, the podcast is going well. So I was just looking at it. Should you explain to a toddler why they are being apprehended during corrective action? No, they understand it. Their language is actions. It's not words. And a toddler to me is under 3, like 16 months to 35 months. They understand actions, not words. Don't get into all these big discussions. I call them the mini therapy sessions. Just take action with a toddler. Also, older kids, they know right from wrong. Parents will often tell me in the first coaching session how incredibly bright and gifted their child is. Then by the third session, they'll say, well, I had to explain it all because he was arguing with me because he didn't understand. I said, now he's a moron? You told me, and I'll write it down and I'll highlight it too. My child is very clever and gifted. Now he's a moron. He doesn't know that he kicked you and that's wrong. You have to explain that. So yeah, you don't have to explain yourself nearly as much as you think you do, because explanations and discussing it does not make any difference in their behavior at all. It's the consequences which make the difference. You know, if you were to go out for coffee with the police and they discussed why you should never speed, would you still speed? Does discussing that make any difference, or do you sometimes still go above the speed limit? Is it the discussion that stops you or the fear of getting a ticket? Is it the consequence that stops you? Think about it. We all know what we should do. Do we often not do the right thing? Do we often break a few rules? You know, I know my foot gets a little bit heavy. If you saw my car, you'd think it's impossible to speed in, but I have a very small car because I live in the city and I love my car. And I say it's like driving a toaster. And when I go over train tracks, it feels like I'm in a popcorn machine. And it almost goes sideways. It's a gorky little car. I like my goofy car. Yeah, the discussions are a waste of time. Parents do it all. I know there are many therapy sessions. It's the pleaser parent style. It's so trendy. Discuss all their big feelings and big emotions. Yeah, it's okay if something's really bothering them, yes, but not just because they're mad because they didn't get their own way. I would never discuss that. Why would you discuss that? What's the point? Are boys or girls easier at a younger age from your experience? I haven't seen it go either way at all. Sometimes in coaching, I'll get a whole bunch of boys, but I will tell you what's interesting. But what I was going to say is that no, after 20 years of doing this, no, I haven't seen any difference. There's just as many easy girls and easy boys and more challenging boys and girls. So I haven't seen it. But what I do notice though is with teenagers, if I'm hired by parents of teenagers, the girls are usually aged, and they're not always, but usually they're aged between 12 and 16. Boys just turned 15. I would say 90 to 95% of the time. When I'm hired to work with parents of teenage boys, they've just turned 15. It's amazing. It's like clockwork. It's when the hormones have kicked in. Their brain cells fly out and the hormones start kicking in. Yeah, I got a whole. I've actually done some research on that. I think it's Andrew Huberman or something that was talking about why. But there is there's actually a reason for that, but I'm not qualified to discuss it. But yeah, their brain cells kind of take a bit of a break. Their sense of reasoning, their impulse control becomes limited, and their hormones just take over. So, otherwise, boys and girls pretty much the same. Okay, I got to get going. Thanks so much for joining me. Check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can get my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching. There's a wait list for that, but you can look into that if you're interested. If you're in crisis, I don't have time to look at the wait list right now. So if you are in crisis and you really want to work with me, you have to send me an email because the intake form, I just haven't had a chance. So anyway, you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I work together and we do the podcast together. She organizes all that. I never know what we're going to be talking about. It's always a surprise because I hate being prepared for anything. I don't work very well that way. So, but yeah, she organizes all that. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Happy parenting. Bye now. Oh, I do not see an exit on this anymore. Oh, there we go. Huh, it's different. Okay, bye YouTube. Whoops. There we go.